Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adrian. Today I'm excited to finally be able to bring you the Warhammer the Old World Gamesmaster's Guide. So several weeks ago I did a review of the Player's Guide, and at time of recording I was expecting the Gamesmaster's Guide to drop round about the same time. Sadly, 6 weeks have gone by, and I've now finally got a preview copy that I've spent the last few days going through, playing, finally getting to run proper combats against monsters. Half of this book is monster stats and creatures and NPCs, and there's different types of monsters in here between minions and brutes and sort of champions. I love the way it's all set up and working. As a Games Master's Guide, as you'd expect, this is all the hints and tips for run. We're running one-shots, campaigns, sandbox adventures, expanding a little bit on sort of just how to run the game, a little bit on magic and spells, and then you've also got some random tables, and finally we get to see what corruption looks like, because the whole of the Player's Guide, there was no corruption in the game. You know, it's a time of chaos for Warhammer. It's a big part of the game that's slowly descending into not madness, but being corrupted and mutated. And we get to see the rules in this book finally. So before I get into the book, let me show you where you can pick up your copy from. So it's available now. So you can't pick up a physical copy. It's available for pre-order. It's due out Q1 2026. And if you pre-order the hardback copy today on Cubicle 7's website, they will, within a few days, I believe, get you the PDF copy, because the PDF copy isn't fully available yet on general release. I say Cubicle 7 very kindly have sent me this, and you'll see it because it says preview copy stamped throughout the whole of the book. But yeah, here we have the $34.99. So both books are at the same price. I did speak to one of the creators around this, and the reason they've done it separate books is because you can then go and own the right one. Obviously the Games Master is going to have a little bit of the additional cost because they will need both books, but the players can use just the Player's Guide. So with that in mind, this is going to be as spoiler free as I can possibly do. There is going to be spoilers in here, and I apologise on behalf of if you're a player, because I want the players to be able to stay in here as long as possible and obviously enjoy this. But when you're going through it, be able to see, is this something you could run as a Games Master? And I think if you've never ran Warhammer, or WFRP as we should call it, this is a great place to start, because it is a simpler system, and because you've only got 2 books, there's a lot less to read. You know, Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition is quite intimidating. There are 20 million books out there, you know, and where to start. Yes, you've got the one core rule book, but I'm always telling everyone they need to go and buy a couple more just to have the rules sort of more palatable for the players. So yeah, bearing in mind, I'm going to try and I'm not going to skip stuff. I'm still going to do every page like I always do when I go through these reviews, but there'll be bits that I won't really focus in on the pages. Okay, so I want to do a follow-up spoiler video at some stage, really sort of digging into this from a Games Master's point of view. You know, because there's a lot of secrets in here and NPCs and things like that that I want to brush over and explain, but not totally spoil. So what have we got within the book? So it's 185 pages, so they're both round about the same sort of thickness or content in a page count. It's probably a better way of wording it. And we've got this giant sort of four-armed minotaur. It has got its own name, and it is covered. We have got the stats for this thing, and I love this. I do love the artwork on this. It's a new edition, latest. Well, it's a brand new game. It's not a new edition in any way. Grim and Glorious Adventures in the World of Legends. And as you can see, it's got draft copy here written in red, and then sort of preview copy. Obviously, this has gone out to a variety of reviewers. So I guess I'm now officially a reviewer, I guess. Throughout the book as well, we are going to see this, where, you know, it says that this is not a final copy by any stretch of the imagination, because final page counts and proofreading hasn't been finished off. But it's going to give you a really good guide for what's in here. So this is going to give us 7 different chapters. So we've got adventures in Talagaad, which is your starting town and area. Contacts. So if you remember from the player's guide, oh, good point. I'll put a link to the player's guide at the end of this video. So if you haven't watched the player's guide, which has been my most watched video ever, then go and watch that as well, so you get a good idea of what's going on in the player's guide. We've got then a section on being the Gamesmaster, which, as you can imagine, is your sort of hints and tips for being a Gamesmaster. Some events in Talagaad, which is like a random table of events that's going on. Corruption, yes, said finally we get to see what corruption is all about, how it's going to affect the players in this game, in this world. Magical items. Love this little section. There are some very detailed. There isn't that many magic items, but it does mean that there's art for a lot of them, and there's quite a lot of detail in here. And then half the book is monsters and NPCs, which actually is what I want to see. I'm really pleased the amount of theory. That's that thing on the front cover, which is your, is it Gorgon? I think is that how it's pronounced. All the hyperlinks clearly don't work. It sort of shows hyperlinks, but the hyperlinks take you to the front cover. Okay, obviously that will be dealt with over time. I'm learning things. I've been reading this off the iPad, so I was fully expecting when I saw these. I think it's a centaur. Well, we'll get onto it when I show you. Okay, so here's your 7 chapters, and like you get in all these Cubicle 7s, because the way they put the books together, it's nice and easy. Is if you look in the top right hand colour, all the chapters are color coded. So as we go through, I'll flip that. So we go to green for chapter 2, but then chapter 3 is blue. So, you know, if you're reading the physical book, if you dare to flick pages through to find things, you can normally quite easily identify where you need to be. So let's just start off with chapter 1, because it makes sense. We've got some letters here that's just sort of plot building of things that are going on, and some communications. And then it gets into the Gamesmaster's tools, which is your first sort of 3 sections in here. We'll then get into Gamesmaster's rules, which is, say, downtime, corruption, magic items. And then finally, the wonderful allies and antagonists, which is your monster manual right at the back. Okay, so the main area in this is the port of Talagaad, and this whole section, so I'm not going to spoil it, but you're going to see certain things. You'll go, you know, especially if you're willing to pause it and sort of zoom in and have a proper look at what's going on. But each of the areas, so that obviously the town itself is divided into sort of like nicer areas and docks and poorer areas. So it talks about, you know, inns and different things. All of these blue boxes, and then there's sort of beigey coloured boxes. These aren't quite hooks like you got in the first, the original WFRP books, but these are very much adventure ideas, or more sort of lore that a Gamesmaster will find really handy to pull out some little sort of one-shot adventures. But what it will do is it will take you through, you know, all the areas of the town. Talks about the law and order up here, and then obviously they've got the Talagaad watch, not a city watch, but other forces that are in there. Detailed section of the docks here, as well as the main tavern in the docking area, the Roaring Badger, which I don't know why the name just chuckles me, you know what I mean. And then we've got this Marion Luggin, which is like they're the main sort of manufacturer, sort of barrel maker in the docks. We then get sort of the market area. It does obviously link back to the player's guide for certain things that are in here, and some of the NPCs as well. And we've got the wizard section here, which is the rose, as well as the sort of the doctors, and then this watchtower, the lazy kettle in here. And finally, the last 2 sections we get over here, we've got the flushed dreck and cold side. Flustrex is like the slums, and it's got this Boyer's Rest, which, as you can imagine, is going to be quite a rough tavern that is known for hard drinking, friendly gambling, and clandestine business. And then finally, we've got the cold side, which is known for being, because it's on the outer side of the town, but it's really, this is the area for sort of travelling, so this is going to have sort of taverns and things like that. The thing I would have really appreciated, and I'm going to guess is coming in the starter set, is I think, you know, when you look, I'm just going to flick back through, so it's got some really good artwork in here that sort of shows you the town, but I'd have liked to have seen a planned town. But I think that is going to come in the starter set, because it's what they did with the starter set in WFRP. So yeah, I you know, with the more detailed maps and stuff that we had in there. So I think this is coming. We've then got Grimportance, which is a big part of the sort of starting mechanics. There are 3 starting adventures in here. So Grimportance, if you haven't read the player's guide, Yeah, that is technically session 0 up to your first adventure. It's what brings the player characters together, what bonds them, and what drives them to go from being a sort of mundane rat catcher into an adventurer. And yeah, there's 3 good, interesting plots here. And again, don't want to spoil it, but say we've got from Ashes, the Pyre Protest, and the Forest Dew. And they will just take you through some sort of key events and points. Looking at them, I think they're going to take probably a session to 2 sessions to get through. Next chapter, so chapter 2 is contacts. So in the player's guide, each character is going to roll 2 contacts from a list of 20. And I thought 20 is probably not going to be enough. And when I saw this, I was like, okay, this is cool. It's going to be more contacts. It's not. It's actually the same contacts, but fleshed out for the Gamesmaster, which is good. Okay, I just know, again, I think starter sets will come out, more expansions are going to come out, because now I look at the contacts in more detail that's in here, the contacts are clearly in this area. So as they build the lore out into the old world lore, I think what we're going to see is, there might be 5-10 additional contacts in each of the areas that are going to come out, but all the contacts will be laid out like this. We've got great artwork. I love the fact they've gone with color, because if you think back to WFRP, I keep comparing the two. I shouldn't be, but because it's my favorite game, I'm looking at this going, yeah, do I need this? Do I want this? Do I want to play this? Yes, 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 yes. As it just keeps ticking all the boxes for me. But I like the fact it's gone for colour. It's always a little bit, because it's consistent across, WFRP, it doesn't bother me, but I do like the fact that the extra cost obviously is coming in with colour art. But we've got 20 of these through here, and it's got a bit of a background in here. So we've got Baroness Carolyn von Castle. Again, I'm not going to spoil her, but it'll give them primary skills, their motivation for help, their personal motivation, the meeting place where in and around Talagaad, where the players are likely to meet them or find them, the favours that they're going to want, the needs they're going to have, allies or alliances. These are how they feel about other contacts in the game, as well as other things that are going to come up, which is incredibly good in world building, any sort of gossip they've got and secrets. And so you're going to go through and I like the fact, as you'd imagine from a Warhammer world, that they're not all just humans. We've got elves in here, we've got goblins, we've got dwarfs as well, males and females as well. But yeah, it's just really good. Really like the fact they're fleshed out, because say when you look at the player's guide, you don't really get a lot from them. And I thought, okay, I thought that was it. It was probably the weakest section. It's a better section now. Still want to see more. This is Cubicle 7. We know we're going to see more as time goes on. We've got, so chapter 3 here, being the Gamesmaster. A lot of the times it's that I've been doing this 30 odd years. I don't need to read these sections. I still do read them depending on the game. This is a completely new world for me, because, well, it's not a new world, but it's a new time frame, because it's 250 years before the world that I know. And especially, you've got to think about these things from a new Gamesmaster's point of view. And this will take the Gamesmaster through things like the difference between explain sandbox adventures to direct adventures, how to deal with sort of conflict between characters, keeping features good or evil. You're going to have a good campaign. Yes, have a good campaign. Or an evil campaign. There's a lot of work on a Gamesmaster for an evil campaign. I'm not saying I never run them and my players don't want to do them, but I do find them slightly more hard work. This is a really handy one, helpful, not heroic. And we do see these, I've been in games with this, and this is basically, if you've got your NPCs in the game, make them helpful, not heroic. Don't take agency away from the players by they're involved in a combat and have this big giant that comes along and helps them, and without that giant turning up, they can't win. Obviously, you've got rules here about NPC death, introducing new threats. So the threats that come in later on are really well read, and there's a table for, actually I won't rush through, there's a table of it, and this is what I was saying about the contacts. Some of the contacts will have be friendly or familiar or hate some of the other threats that are actually coming in here as well. How to handle downtime, because one of the big parts of these Cubicle 7 sort of Warhammer games is players in between adventures are going to have downtime, And that is where the players in this edition are going to be leveling up and increasing their skills. So you've got to make sure you handle downtime and make sure you include it regularly. So the game does recommend every sort of 2 to 3 sessions you have at least have a downtime section in here as well. Then a little bit about prepping, introducing the threats slowly and how you sort of tease the threats in. Dark Threats is a massive spoily section, so I'm going to try and cover it as fast as I can without spoiling too much. So we've got this, which when you first look at it, you go, hold on, that makes your head hurt. But Cubicle 7 had one of these in the Enemy Within campaign. And actually, when you follow it up, it's pretty easy because you've just got lines here of showing which factions and which individuals hate each other, how they interact. You know, we've got here just here between the Dust Queen and Kutsek. Why do I pick one I can't pronounce? Distrusted Visor. So there'll be some sort of tag word. But in this section here, I got all these block capital words in bold, and that just fleshes out little bits about the clans and everything for the Gamesmaster. So if you're thinking about it when you're starting the world, and let's say you want to start something with the Grand Duchy of Talagaad, introduce them to a few people. You're not necessarily going to go straight in with Duke Ludwig the 12th, but one sort of fringe person connected, and then that will slowly then bring in. So if we've got this Talagaad long sights, that's going to bring in the Red Eyes tribe through Boggo the Sly. So it's really simple. So I ignore the whole of the right hand side of the page. It's not relevant. And you can, as you get more comfortable as a games master and as you flesh out the world more, you can start following the lines to go, do you know what, I can bring that one in here. But if that's not good enough, you can create your own dark threads. It's got the rules to make and create your own. Character creation is always a good time to actually, I really encourage my players to do character creation with me, because what I want to do is I want to learn about what that character can do, but also the background, what sort of motivations and goals and schemes that the players have. And this section talks about it. You know, you can design your adventure around your player hooks. Obviously, be careful if you're going to, you know, if one player's got a strong background and you design an adventure around one player, the other players are going to get quite bored. So you kind of got to build it in to include everyone. But even if you're going to do one of the Grim Portents in this section, well, sort of back a few pages, think about their goals, the things they want to achieve, and look to include that as you go along. When you want to give the players ideas or hooks, you can do that via, I like this way. Gossip is the standard one that a lot of us are on the streets, but omens and dreams, you know, because this is a fantastical sort of chaos is coming. So, you know, doing it through dreams or bested foes, or you can have it through magic, or the lesser one, written letters, you know, or I do like graffiti though. Graffiti is a great idea for players. Some hints and tips for social engagements, because social encounters, I think as games masters, we're all really good at running combat. As long as you know the rules, you can't really get combat wrong, but it does talk a little bit here, you know, previously about social encounters. Magical panic table just adds a little bit to the magic. I was hoping to see more magic stuff in this book, but this is it. This is, you've got 3 paragraphs really in here as well. Section about talking when enemies should run, because most things won't really fight to the death. Even a lot of animals will still run away when they get hurt. Actually, a fair amount of animals will run away on first hit. And then just talks you through, you know, planning out the adventures. As a games master, love this. Balancing out encounters. Not every party composed of players with combat-focused careers. So you do have to think. And it kind of gives you hints and tips, because when we get to the monster section, or the APs, you know, NPCs and allies, there are no sort of levels in here. So as a games master, you're going to have your work cut out initially trying to work out exactly what's good. So it just gives you some hints and tips for really the amount of XP that they're going to be getting should help you as a games master kind of work out what, because you don't want to kill players. Nobody sets out to kill players, but sometimes death does happen. bad decisions by the Gamesmaster, bad decisions by the players, unlucky rolls, whatever it may be. But sometimes you may not foreshadow just how powerful the monster may be, or through lack of experience, because it's a brand new game, you might actually set up something that's too difficult to start with. So it's just going to give you some hints and tips on sort of how to sort of pull back away from that. System itself, so this is going to talk about skill text. The system itself, I love. It's D10s, and you're just rolling bunches of D10s, trying to normally get over sort of like a 3 or 4 or 5, depending on what your skill is. And obviously you can add dice or subtract dice for dice modifiers, and for whether it's difficult or easy checks or people helping. And then we've got this grim and glorious, which is advantage and disadvantage, which is my favorite part of the dice mechanic. I love a little bit of dice manipulation, or players telling me as a player why they think that their character should roll with advantage based on things they've got in their background. And it's a really good, because basic advantage, disadvantage, or grim and glorious in this game. Grim, disadvantage, you're re-rolling successes. Glorious, you're re-rolling fails. Brilliant, absolutely great fun mechanic to actually go with on there as well. So events in Talagaad. So chapter 4 is just details, as it very much sounds, events that are going to go on when the players are in Talagaad and during their downtime. We've got a D100 table here again. It links to an event and then takes that event and talks about interested contacts. There's a lot. I like this. There's, what's that, like 25, 30. And then we get into chapter 5, corruption. And, well, as I sort of talked about very early on, corruption is a very important part of Warhammer World. But more importantly, it's very much more important, well, it feels a more important part of the 250 years before Warhammer Fantasy, because a lot of people aren't really aware that chaos is coming. Some of the nobles are, and some of the politicians and the royalty are, but they are pretending everything's fine because it's more important that they keep their jobs and their roles, and that they protect the sort of the general public from it. So it's done in a really good and interesting way. So, and as you discover more corruption and you're exposed to it, you will then be making willpower checks not to be sort of corrupted by it. And depending on how subtle or obvious the corruption is, will determine how difficult it is actually to pass that willpower check. And it just gives you some examples in here. So if it's subtle, so that's like briefly to touch in refined weird stone. You know, if you're going into Runus, then cast in a profane spells. So that's back into the player's guide, and they're more the sort of more corrupting sort of spells that you can cast. We're then going to get a sort of breakdown of the stages of corruption. So when you are corrupted, for argument's sake, so as you start to fail the willpower rolls, you will then become vulnerable to corruption, and you've then got 3 different levels, and you can become tarnished, tainted, all the way to damned. And pretty much once the player characters are at damned, handing over your character sheet, Gamesmaster is going to ask you to create a new player. Because, well, unless you decide as a party and everyone sort of gets damned or tainted really badly at the same time, you could turn it into a sort of more chaotic adventure. And what the rest of this section is going to do is it's going to give us 6 different, so technically I think they're sort of designed as sort of cults, and it will just take you through. So we've got the Children of the Forest here. So the preferred victims, this will look for humans, hunters, rangers, animal tamers, and it will just detail as they become vulnerable, things that happen. But with all of them, once they get to tarnished, they are going to get some sort of chaotic mutations. So in these tarnished ones, they might end up with armored hide, bestial gaze, or retractable claws. And you're going to go, that's good. Yeah, most of these are good. Most of the tarnished stage is good because chaos is going, actually, come and join us. You can become more powerful, more stronger. So here, you know, the blood must flow. Bulgy muscles, character gains +2 strength. Who's not going to want that? Well, the reason they're not going to want that is because once they get into the fully tainted, then the damn stage, they are going to end up being fully converted over. And it's got, you know, secrets to sorcerers, humans, elves, wizards and scholars in here as well. Enduring the endurable, so the sick and the downtrodden, carers and doctors as well, and then dark obsessions. It's a good section. I deeply recommend people read that, take that on board, because corruption, say, it's a huge part of the Warhammer world. And like I sort of said in the player's guide, when I looked at the art in the player guide, unlike this, the art it's fresh, if that makes sense, because as I almost correctly guessed, I had a few people sort of go, actually, it's not quite that in the world, but I think this is the way they're going through it. So most people in the world, especially when you read the corruption section, aren't aware that chaos is coming. And it's that, think back to Jaws, everyone's swimming in the sea. The people in charge know that that shark's in that sea, but they're keeping quiet because they want to make money. They don't want the beach closed for, I can't remember what holiday it was in Jaws. I don't know why I'm talking about Jaws, but you get the point. It's the people in charge know the lesser people, the poor, the workers, everyone else, they're just having a holiday, having a good time. Shark comes in, like chaos will do, and it's going to affect people very badly. And really, it's the people in charge's fault. So yeah, that is corruption. Corruption's a giant rubber shark. It's not, but hopefully you get the analogy there. Magic items. This section's a little bit weird for me. I love magic items and I love what they put in here, but it talks about acquiring magic items, and magic items are treated as assets. They can't be purchased. They're exceedingly hard to acquire. Stumbling across them, whims of fate, or they may be handed down. So they're going to be pretty hard to find. And as a games master, I'm not going to be giving these away very, very early on, and you can create your own. Some basic sort of outline here. The magic items themselves are amazing, but you're not going to want to give these to starting players. So I appreciate they're in here, but my games mastery mind is, if this is in here, I'm going to be kind of wanted to go and give, my players a dragon bow, a relic from an ancient elven colony of the old world. Wonderfully grafted bow enables the wielders to outshoot all but the finest of archers in the empire. It's 6 damage. It's got extreme range in here. I just love it. I love reading, like monster stats. I love reading magic items and magic books because they do allow me to bring on adventures and games. But most of these things are sort of going to be an end level find for the players, because you're not going to want to give these to starting players. And I kind of think I'm trying to word this in a way that doesn't sound, because I like the fact they're in here, but I think as a games master, you've got to really discipline yourself to not give out magic items too early, because when you do, it can really break a game or make one player considerably harder. So you could do this over 10, 12-week session and then give away the armor of Alagulf here. They could find it. But if you've got a party of 4 and you give one powerful magic item out, the rest of the party aren't going to be happy, because that one player is going to then shine a little bit more. So yeah, it's love the fact it's in here. I've said this a few times. I think I prefer to see something different, say maybe more maps in here, especially more contacts and stuff, and then maybe the magic items, or more of the magic items could have gone into another expansion. I kind of think magic items should be a reward at the end of something, and you probably could have put a couple more Grim Portents in here to have a couple more starting adventures, just to sort of get the sort of game master to go, because there's no sort of full-on first level several week adventure in here. Obviously it's coming with a starter set, we know that's coming, but I think that probably won't drop till the summer of next year, so that's quite far away. But nevertheless, it's in here, and they are great and interesting magic items. But with that is us halfway through the book, and the rest of the book is now fantastic creatures laid out in a terrible way. Okay, and I don't get it, and you'll see what I mean when we get to it. I'm not sure whether, I think it might make sense to actually just go back to the contents when I get to my recap, because the stats themselves and the creatures and the way it's done is brilliant. I've ran several combats now against different creatures. I think with what's in here, I'm going to be able to solo an adventure quite well, especially based on other books that I now have for creating adventures on the fly. But one of the most important things about the NPCs is the NPCs have been, there's 4 different types effectively. We've got minions, which have one, well, they don't take any wounds really. So as soon as they take a wound, they die. So they're nice and easy. You can have tens of those, and the players are just going to slaughter through them. We've got brutes, which will have a variety of wounds, but they don't still roll on the wound table as they take wounds. So if they would suffer a wound and then take another roll on the wound table, they just take 2 wounds. They're going to die quicker. And then we've got champions, which you're going to run pretty much like the PCs, because they will have wounds and roll on the damage tables and stuff. Then you've got monstrosities, which are giant, larger creatures. And it even has the rule, whereas there's a rule in here for mounting them. I think your players are going to be over the moon, the fact that they've got these monstrosities that they can then mount and then use as a mount. Again, further doubles down on the suggested encounters. I don't know whether this is a misprint or not, because it pretty much seems to be the same as we've already seen. So I don't know whether that's, so they haven't finally decided where it's going to land in the book. But we've got a reference here for understanding the NPC profiles. So the attributes, as you'd imagine, are exactly the same as the players, but they will have some speed as well, see how far they can move. Resilience technically is their toughness, plus any sort of armor bonus they've got, the sort of type of damage they're going to do, and the amount of attacks they're going to get. They may have some protection or special equipment as well. And then finally, we've got trappings. And this is what I mean about the weird layout. So initially, we're going to talk about the Grand Duchy of Talagaad. And this is going to give us the sort of background into it, the goals and the methods, the nobles in here. Then we've got stats for artisans, empire folk, empire peasant, footpad, brigand, town watch, official, and noble. And then knight, we've got a few knights, but it's not in alphabetical order in any way, shape, or form. So as a Gamesmaster's tool, that's my problem with this section. It's not what's in here. So it's like the artwork, the stats, everything is included in here. All your different attacks, the different types of attacks, and because one of my criticisms of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is the fact that it'll have like your keyword, and then you've got to go and find it somewhere else or memorize it, where this is all in here. The Priest of Tiles in here. And then it goes Ogre and Halfling. Again, how's that with then dwarfs? It's all over the place. It really is all over the place. But individual art and beautiful art throughout as well. So it's very hard to criticize in here. Then we've got another grand county in here. So it's just difficult to sort of follow. And my favorite things here, we're getting into Ulrich as well, and then the wonderful Priest of Ulrich. But yeah, if you're relatively new, you're going to be, oh, how do I find them? Flagent, that was picked up. Someone said, oh, there's no Flagent in the book as a player character, which there isn't. But I think you could probably easily convert some of these if you wanted to. But if they're in here, that means they're coming in expansions. You just know that that's going to be, witches, warlocks in here, demologists, and necromancers, always my favourite spellcasters. One day someone's going to let me, and I keep saying it, and I never see it in the comments, let me come and play in your game aid, and you can play a necromancer in my game. Nobody wants it, but we've got dogs, rats, swarms, horses, giant spiders, white wolves, giant boars in here. And we've got the cloven ones, which, as you can imagine, are going to be all the beast men that are in here that may or may not be existing, because it very much hints that they don't exist. Chaos is coming, and yeah, you've got a lot of choice in here. The Minotaur here, Dragon Ogres, I'll just skip past there. Centaur, didn't know what a Centaur was before, because never seen it, but it's in here, because I've never played with the minis. Here we are, yeah, it is the Gorgon, which is your 4-armed Minotaur, or Minotaur, depending on which side of the Atlantic you actually are. My friends always take the mick out of me, because I say it wrong, so I don't know whether it's meant to be Minotaur in this country, or Minotaur. It's like Lieutenant, we call it Lieutenant. Most people call it Lieutenant because you watch American films. The Red-Eye tribe here, we're going to get into like your goblins. And you think all these link back as well to the grim stuff that's going on that big table. So it's all linked in and very well done. It's just alphabetize something. I just make it easy for games masters. You know, that's all we want as a games master is, you know, we've got skeletons and whites. You know, we just want to just make it easy. We're going to get to, have we got to the vampires and the liches yet? Yeah, here we go. I went past that as I was moaning a little bit again, because obviously the vampire wars happened and all the vampires died. Well, they didn't, did they? Because they're in here, but people think they're dead, and that's, I think, the beauty of this world. Demigryphs. One of the Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing expansion books allows this to become a mount, and you can be a knight that mounts on demigryphs. So hopefully that's going to come in this, because I've never got to play 4th edition. I've ran it and I've never got to play it, and I am going to be playing it on RX Oliver's, but I don't think it's going to be streamed live. I think it's not going to be recorded. So yeah, that's finally happening. And we've got some dragons and some wyverns. This troll, this actually looks like, doesn't look like artwork. This looks like a painted model to me. I don't know whether that's just a me thing, but that looks like a really good paint. I can't paint, but that's, say, and then we've got these troll hags, wild spirits, giants in here, skin wolf, which is hideous. But I guess it's some sort of lycanthrope here, and that has got me at the end of the book. Right, let's get to my final thoughts. My final thoughts tend to go throughout the video. I tend to sort of talk about them throughout, but yeah, I just want to let me just show you on the contents just how weird it looks. So here we have got like all the creatures in here from page 84 up to 63, and it's just, I use the mess word loosely because what's in here is months and years of adventures and encounters, and you're going to be able to build campaigns around like the liches and the vampires and stuff like that, which is brilliant. But I don't think it's necessarily been the easiest layout for a games master, especially if you're like, you know, of this as the PDF becomes more available and it's linked properly. I probably should be able to use Control F to, you know, go and find words and sections in here and hyperlink, and so it should be relatively easy. But running a stat block, thank goodness, is really simple. I'd say some games, looking at you, Pathfinder 2nd edition, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and even 4th edition, can be a bit of homework when you're running a stat block, because you've got to find out what all those traits and those keywords are. Everything's here. So half the book is monster manual. About a quarter of the book is really useful information for games masters, and then the rest, you know, those corruption rules. Love the corruption rules. I would have liked a table though. You know, again, hopefully this will come, because the corruption rules are just taking dice off. I want to see more mechanical stuff on corruption, and I like the fact it's got your 6 different cults and the way you are corrupted in that. And then, you know, they have got 3 different things, but that's probably the worst part for me of the whole book, is the fact that, because I'm used to, you know, 30, 40 years of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay where you get corrupted and you roll on this big table of things that can happen. It's going to give you 3 eyes and stuff. And I like the fact it breaks away. I do, but I kind of, you know, sometimes you're just used to something being the way it was, and change can be a little bit harder. I think... want more on Talagaad, but that's definitely coming in the starter set. We just know it's going to be, like, say, that they've did with 4th edition, with Uberstreck, isn't it, I think, which is the starting town, because it kind of touches on it in one of the core rule books. And most of the starter set is, well, the adventures in there, and then you've got, you know, a guide to the city as well. Brilliant. Both these books, maybe I should do a separate video on... Well, I'm definitely going to do a video on comparing both of these to 4th edition, and, you know, accessibility, ease of play, etc., because I'm still in that, is this going to be replacing my 4th edition? I need to now get... So I've played it. I now need to get this played with people. And because when you're playing something solo, which is nice and simple to do with this, because you've got both books to do and stuff, and, you know, there's other books that you can use to sort of build things on, and Grim Portents is a good place to start if you're going to do this solo. But when you're doing stuff yourself, you kind of know what you look for and what you would do. And it's only when you throw things in front of players that actually then really make you test the rules. Because one of the other big downsides of me being a dyslexic is I don't always capture all the rules when I'm playing and when I'm reading. So even when I'm playing, I think I've got the rule right. And then it's only when I sit down in front of a group and they go, that doesn't make sense, Aid. And I'm like, well, it does make sense. It makes sense to me. And then they'll reread the rule and I'll go, oh, okay, that makes more sense now. That, that is a slightly easier way to run. But it's good. It is very, very good. I will do a full spoiler one talking about plots and stuff later on, but I think that'll come once this is actually on for full review. Other thing, obviously, if you are going to pick this up and you want just the PDF, please do consider using my affiliate link, because say it just helped me sort of generate a little bit of income back into the channel. Those that are using my affiliate link, thank you very much. I will put a link down in the video description. Obviously, if not, pick this up. Obviously, pick up the physical copy. You won't get it till next year. And the player's guide is due round about the same time. I think they're probably going to land at the same time. So if you do pre-order it, you should get your PDF copy, I'd imagine, in the next couple of weeks. Already out, depending on when you've watched this, because YouTube videos could be there for a very long time. But if you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Let me know down in the comments below what you particularly like or dislike about this new... It's not a new edition, it's a brand new sort of world setting, isn't it? So, yeah, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.